Hello, and welcome to the Cram session for the persuasive speech. Just FYI, since this is my first one, I decided to change it up this semester and create these Cram sessions and link them to the class either the day before the speeches and so forth. We develop speeches as we go along for the prep, but I'm doing this for just any last minute reminders and so forth, or some students can use it as comparison and things of that nature. So keep that in mind. That's what the purpose of this is. This is a persuasion speech, and this is done in my public speaking and argumentation courses because persuasion is an important part of those two. Any argument is a persuasion, and that is a fundamental thing to understand when it comes to argumentation. And then persuasion, of course, is one of the three major general purposes of a speech. Here is just a reminder on persuasion, the speech pattern, the setup, since, by the way, any persuasion class in my, any persuasion speech in my classes is problem solution speeches, just a reminder how your speech pattern should be set up. By the way, also a reminder on persuasion, it has to be a problem that needs to be fixed. So if it's not a problem, just a reminder, here in the United States, uh, the death penalty it's still used in most states. It's in the federal government. So being pro death penalty is not much of a problem solution speech since it's widely done. If you're against the death penalty, that's a much easier problem solution speech than being for the death penalty. So this is, again, if your problem is something that doesn't change anything, then you shouldn't do the topic. Just a last minute reminder. And if there's no solution, if your solution is the status quo, then you shouldn't be doing that topic. Because again, it has to be a problem that needs to be fixed and then a solution that isn't change. So keep that in mind, all right? So what other things I just want to remind you about before this? So the initial setup, that's why I have this thing in front, is as you remember from the classes, main point one is a problem, main point two is a problem, and your main point three is the solution. Just a reminder, your thesis should be, we need to do this solution. So the setup, the speech pattern here, the way I teach it, because it's very simplified, basic, is that it's just the overall problem, right? The overall, the big problem. This one is, I always like to say, some people say cause effect type stuff or whatever. I like to say it should connect to your solution. And so this is the big abstract problem. This is more narrow focus because it connects with your solution. So example of this, that's different from the practice speech I'm going to show you that I've been showing you through the prep is main point. Let's say your solution is the United States needs to stop supporting dictatorships across the world or tyrannical governments around the world. And so your main point one would be something like tyrannical governments around the world, right? Either, that are currently here or in recent history. So you would talk about, a good example of this is Saudi Arabia, some governments in Central America, um, some places in Asia, Middle East, and so forth. Our recent past before especially with Ukraine, the past support or cooperation with Russia. So there's lots of examples of, but this is not about the US, this is just bad regimes across the world, right? Who, increase of fascism and so forth, and dictatorships. And so main point two would be connecting the United States to them. So you would say in the thing and then connect it. So you could talk about, like, remember we said the sub point should be general in two general groups. So you can maybe sub point A be about the regimes that we currently support. Saudi Arabia is, like, I think the best example. There's lots of other examples around the world of people we cooperate with horrible human rights track records. They had no democracy, no representation of its people in any way, shape, or form across the world. All right. So that's your main point two. I'm sorry, main point. In main point two, subpoint A. And then subpoint B would be like when we directly involved ourselves. So, for example, coups. We have participated in coups in our recent history. Chile, Iran, lots of different coups that we brought in dictatorships and so forth. So that's the setup. The overall problem of horrible governments around the world, and then the connection with the United States in main point two, how we facilitated it or keep them afloat or stuff like that. And then main point three is your solution. And remember, your solution should be a real change. It has to be agency. It's not just awareness. Remember what I say about awareness, which I will not repeat on camera in a recording, but awareness for the most part doesn't really do anything. So like, pass laws, increase budgets, or anything like that. There's lots of solutions out there. If it's a real problem that you can take from, as long as you properly cite it. Remember, in citation, and this is a reminder for your speech, according and in. Anytime you say according to the New York Times, in the Wall Street Journal, I'm going to say some fake ones in my speech, but a little bit later, but you can see what it's a citation because I start off with either according or in the New England Journal of Medicine. So main point three is your solution. And again, the solution should be something like, by the way, as always, I shoot this late at night at the end of the day because there's no cars passing by. It's not loud outside. But anyways, the main point three is something like a solution where you would say for the supporting dictatorships around the world, passing a law saying that the United States cannot participate or support any coups. And you might be specific and say any coups against any democracies, any verified or healthy democracies. Or you can say, and it cannot directly support, another law you could pass cannot directly support dictatorship or tyrannical or fascist governments around the world. So you can see here, you can change things, or you can say something like you increase the state budget where it only gives money to healthy representative governments. All right. We're not trying to do hardcore, policy speeches here. It's about the setup, either in my public speaking class or argumentation. Argumentation, this is your first project. So especially for you guys, I don't want, you to solve the world's problems. I want you to, the setup, problem, solution. Remember, your intro is a setup for your speech. Your conclusion is the wrap it up type thing. But the most important thing is, I always say the rule of three for your speeches. This is your bread and butter. This is where the citation is, and you should follow a nice story setup, a nice, or as argumentation class, we say narrative. You're setting up your narrative, problem, solution. So let's see this in action. And I'm going to have the outline in front of me, and that way I can cut off my face because I always look horrible. I have no good sight. I blame COVID because I never had it. I look poofy because of all the sitting in for those years. Let's see. Share screen. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. So I'm very self-conscious. All right, here we go. All right, Microsoft Edge. I don't really care what you have to say. All right. So what I have here, let's put the whiteboard down. What I have here is my timer, and I'm going to try to get close to the time for this. Now, it should be stated in my argumentation class, it's a 5-minute cutoff because this is a basic setup type. This is a starter speech for you. So 5 minutes, you can go 50 seconds, or, is the wait time, 50 seconds before, 50 seconds after. In the public speech class, this is your last speech, so you're given more time for this. So you're given an extra, you can still get, it's 6 minutes. And it's a little bit more flexible with the time, but not too early and so forth. So I'm gonna shoot for 5 because the first people that see this will be argumentation. So I'm gonna shoot for 5. And I'm gonna use one of the banned speeches as a speech I've been using throughout the setup for this speech, which is a cartel, the cartels. All right, and so forth. I'm gonna try to do this as impromptu as possible because I want to show you with using this outline how easy it is to just do the speech. And again, remember my citations are fake because again, it's more impromptu. All right. Let's see. I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to do something a little bit different. So let's see. Cartels. Okay. Okay. I got it. Okay. And as always, as in my speeches, when you start talking, we start the time. When you are looking at your neighborhood, especially the schools, you're always wondering what is causing the issues that are happening on our local level. What is happening on it? And a lot of time with the school stuff, it's a lot of stuff that's happening outside of it. Gun laws, federal, state budgets. Well, that's the same thing when we look at our issues that are currently happening in the sense of drugs and crime in the United States in relation to Mexican cartels. Mexican cartels a coming across the border with their influence, with all their activities and so forth, and it has to be addressed. Of course, this could affect you because when it comes to safety in our streets or what we're dealing with the drug crisis, it might affect you personally in some way. And then also, I've done a lot of research about this. I've done a lot of research. I've looked into this, and it's something I'm very passionate about. That is why I say the United States needs to look at military options to combat the Mexican cartels. Of course, Mexican cartels, there's a lot of issues, but the military is one of them. And I'll talk about the overall problems with the cartels, their influence in the United States, and then finally how we can intercede with U.S. military. Of course, I'm just setting up the speech. Let's go ahead and talk about the problem with the Mexican cartels. And just the FYI, the Mexican cartels play a major role in a lot of different areas. It's not just here in the United States, it's also within the region. And they have a lot of influence in Central America and around the world. We see this with the territories they have in Mexico and their trade across the globe. Let's look at the issue with what they're doing in Mexico, where there are parts of Mexico that even the police and the military don't necessarily go into because they're controlled by Mexican cartels. And so in doing so, they're establishing themselves. They're giving sovereignty and credibility that we see in some nations. And they're having more territory than some nations. So it's that establishment that is keeping them in power long term. And also, you got to look at their trade. They're a major trading power with a lot of things we talk about with drugs and stolen materials and so forth, not just in around our area, but their reach is going across the oceans into Asia, Africa, and in Europe. So their reach is going out there. But we talked about the cartels themselves. Let's talk about their reach in the United States. In the United States, I missed a citation there. In the United States, their reach is getting to a point where we need a direct conflict because direct contact because their reach is hitting us on the everyday with, of course, their drugs and then of course their trade in violent gear and so forth. Let's look at their what we know and we talk about the most with the drug trade crossing the border. We're of course looking at according to the New York Times, the increased traffic of fentanyl is putting a lot of school kids at risk, or they're even making these rainbow pills to attract kids into their drug trade. And so this is a problem where we're seeing on the everyday, where we have school kids dying due to that. And the sheer amount, they're overtaking trade from previous cartels and previous things in Colombia and other parts of the world. So they're becoming the dominant force when it comes to illicit drugs. And then also we have to look at the gear because it's not just them taking stuff. They are in for the drugs, they're buying our weapons. And so it's a trade and activity where they are taking our weapons and using it to assert authority. So the trade is both ways. And what we are giving them is also affecting us in such a negative way where it is well, I'm going too long in time. So this is leading into what we need. We talked about their influencing United States. We talked about what we need to do now. And so what we need to do now is look at all the different options we have and there's a lot of different ways for us to do it. The main one is military, and then also policy changes. Let's look at the military now. Of course, I'm not advocating for it. According um, in the Los Angeles Times, Mexican officials have said that there is no way U.S. military can cross borders. That is, of course, understood, but we can provide assistance to their military to embolden them and bring them up to speed to our level of military, where they can easily defeat cartel interests. So this is a major point here that we can do. We can give them the means to combat places where they're going against a rogue nation inside their own borders. And thanks to US military help that we've seen us do across the world, and like, for example, here with Ukraine. And then the other thing that we can do is look at some of the policy changes that help furnish it, like some of the trade deals that we have that obliterated Mexican agriculture. So when Mexican agriculture went down due to our trade deals with NAFTA and now the new one, other industries took place. We saw the same thing happen in Colombia. So we need to read about our trade deals and hopefully help bring up industries to go against the cartels. And in doing so, hopefully that issue can bring in a new way to go against the Mexican cartels. We looked at the solution. Now let's just wrap it up. I first talked about the cartels as an overall problem, then their influence in the United States, and finally how we can look at the military and other possible solutions. There's a lot here and a lot to talk about the Mexican cartels and how do we need to go against them directly with military intervention. But this is a long issue. It is something that we need to address, just like when we look at the problem with our local schools and all their issues. It's something that we can't solve in one day or one thought. Hopefully this will help. All right, so I went long. I went more towards the time of um, the speeches I do for my public speaking courses, which are closer to 6 minutes. But that's also because I was making it up as we go along. By the way, the solution of the trade changes is something I just added on the spot because it's something actually that I strongly believe in. I never use. I usually use the more basic example of military stuff. And then I was like, you know what, why don't I put my own personal spin, which is, of course, more of the trade part, because that's, I don't want to get started, but you understand. So when you are thinking the last minute stuff, look at this video and think of some of the things I pointed out. The structure of your, what you need to do, how to according or in for citation. My example of the speech, of course, you're going to be practicing more, so you're going to hone your time a lot better than my little impromptu session. And hopefully by that, you can see how you don't need the stress. And I've been saying it over and over again, practice, practice, practice. Hopefully this last minute jolt can help you get over any kind of last minute anxiety. You got this, no worries. And there's always extra credit. I'm just kidding. You got this, no worries. Let's see. Oh, I got to get out of stop share first. And then have a great day, and hopefully this cram session helps.